Welcome back to the Connected podcast. I'm thrilled to bring you an extraordinary collection in which some incredible students take the driver's seat and host dynamic conversations with professionals from across the higher education sector, discussing the vital topic of student belonging. Back with us today is Callum, who is talking to Becky Naylor-Teece from the University of Southampton. Becky is an academic skills officer and works in the transition team, which sits within the widening participation and social mobility directorate at the university. Becky's work is primarily focused on developing academic writing skills among pre-entry university students who are completing project qualifications.
Lovely to have you with us this afternoon, Becky. Thanks for joining us on the podcast. I think your experiences are going to bring a completely different perspective into this conversation, because I've been talking to a lot of colleagues who are looking at, university students that are here and looking at the life cycle of their belonging. But you're in a slightly different kind of pre-entry stage. So I wonder whether you can talk a little bit about how your experiences and your role has shaped your understanding of belonging and how you understand belonging based on what you do with the students that you work with.
Yeah, so I suppose for me, belonging has to do with being able to envisage themselves at university and seeing university as something that they could belong to, a place for people like them, sort of a place that they can be themselves as well, that they can see other people like themselves being there. So that's something that we try to make sure that we incorporate within campus visits that we run for students, so that when they come and join us on campus, they can see people who they perceive to be like themselves in some way or another. And so we make sure that we incorporate a lot of interaction with the student body, even if that's just in the form of a campus tour, so that they're just able to see that role modeling, I suppose. And yeah, we want those students to believe and to feel that their background is already represented at university, so other people backgrounds to them, that they could fit in for that reason.
Yeah, excellent. I think this is such an important area, because quite often I think our focus is on what do we do with our students when they get here, and we do have things like campus tours or kind of taster days, but it feels to me like there's a lot more that we could do to stretch beyond that, and it's about that kind of induction into the university before they've even arrived, I suppose. And I know you do some work around the EPQ. I wonder if you could talk to us a little bit about what an EPQ is and what you do with those students who are wanting to undertake one.
So up to half an A level, and so it's typically done by students who are in sixth form or college. There are lower down versions as well, so the levels 1 and 2, but primarily we work with students who are doing the EPQ. And the EPQ essentially is a completely unique qualification. So it's an independent qualification where the student chooses a topic of interest and they plan and conduct a project in which they research that topic, formulate an argument, and present it in the form of potentially an essay, or it could be a product, and they also have to present it to an audience as well. So it's a really different type of qualification. It's not like any other A levels, and students who do it learn skills that maybe wouldn't be covered in other subjects. So things like referencing are really important for students that we talk to. They learn how to think critically, how to have that critical lens when looking at academic sources, how to gather research, organise it, even just that skill of keeping it all together in one place. Manage a project, manage their time. So actually lots of the skills that students will need at undergraduate level, these students who've done an EPQ have already become familiar with them and started to hone them by doing this qualification.
Brilliant. And so, I mean, I can see there's already direct links between, again, the types of skills that students might be developing pre-entry into university. But I'm just wondering, from your experience and the work you do, how that has an impact on students' sense of belonging, and whether you see that as they're starting to think about applying to university, whether you see that as they're coming through the university, and what factors or indicators are you getting that is having an impact on belonging?
Yeah, so we work with the students in a variety of ways, and primarily that involves we're going out to schools and delivering workshops to support those research skills. Sometimes virtual versions of that, so online. And then one of the main things we do is that the students come to campus and experience the campus day. And so within that day, they will spend time looking at sources for their project. So we give them access to our library catalogue, which is really important because, especially for the types of students that we want to support to get into higher education, the paywalls preventing them from accessing those academic articles are really problematic. So when we get them onto campus, they're often like amazed by just how much they can access just with that university login. So that helps them to overcome some of those financial barriers, first of all, but also by coming to campus and seeing a campus in many cases for the first time, we are able to introduce them to this idea that university is a place for people. So they'll see students just milling about, having their lunch on campus, and even just that, just being in and amongst them, is really impactful. We take them to the library as part of the day so that they can see that amazing studious environment that we are quite familiar with, but they maybe won't have come across before. So students choosing to come to the library and spend the day just working independently. So that's fantastic. And then in terms of seeing the benefits of the EPQ and being able to see sort of evidence that it's making a difference to belonging, we've got anecdotal evidence from the students that attend those campus visits that they are more likely to feel more positively about the idea of going to university, having attended a campus visit. So almost all of the students who we ask to feedback about their visit to the university will feedback positively that it's made a positive impact on their attitudes towards going to university. So that's fantastic to start with. And then we're just starting now to do a little bit of research where we're looking at the experiences of current undergraduate students at the University of Southampton who have and haven't done the EPQ, and just some of the quotes that have come out of that research, which is unpublished as yet, tell you that lots of the feedback that those students who've done an EPQ are giving us is that it's helped them with that sense of belonging. So it helped them with their academic skills, which is obviously going to support them in sort of bridging the gap and feeling comfortable with the academic side of university, but also the sense of university is a place for people like me.
Yeah, it's so interesting, isn't it? Because I am reflecting on work that we've done. Again, unpublished work at the moment, but hoping that it will be published soon on work we've done with undergraduate students. And some of them say, well, I already did that subject before I came here, so I already knew the bits about psychology or the bits about sociology, and so there definitely is something in and around feeling that there's something familiar already perhaps within the learning content or within the university space that maybe some students have had access to and some haven't had access to. So I'm thinking of students that come straight through A levels and then have done some of those different ologies, contributing to those social sciences, as opposed to students that maybe come through a slightly different route or have gone to college and had a disrupted route into education, for example. So it sounds to me like the EPQ is sort of almost like a leveler sometimes for those young people that maybe haven't had the same experiences or want a kind of a top up to help them with that kind of familiarity and confidence. So do you find that you get students from a range of backgrounds, or is it primarily targeting students from a particular widening participation background?
So as far as our targeting goes, we try to primarily work with students where there is a widening participation emphasis. We work with schools where there's a high proportion of students who live in indices of multiple deprivation quintile 1 postcodes, 1 of 5, and then students who have FSM backgrounds, so they might have free school meals in the past. And so we principally try to work with schools and colleges where that's the case. However, it doesn't necessarily mean to say that the students in those schools and colleges who are doing the EPQ meet those criteria. So there's some work for us to do on evaluating, and it's something that we're starting to be able to do now, is evaluating the effect of our input and of just doing the EPQ on students from those specific backgrounds.
Yeah, very interesting. And so I'm thinking then about kind of future directions or actions that different university colleagues can make. One would be obviously to try and work with young people on EPQs and to kind of facilitate that. But are there any key principles from what you do in the EPQ that you think are transferable to universities that are thinking about how to make their in pre-induction and arrival process much more robust to kind of maximise the opportunity for belonging? Are there any principles that you've learned from the EPQ that you think would be useful for broader planning and supporting belonging?
Yeah, so I suppose it is just about primarily those academic skills, because those are the things that once the students arrive at university, having something under their belt where lots of these skills are concerned will just give them one less thing to think about. And for those students from a WP background, actually having, you know, the fact that they haven't got to think, oh, how do I write a reference, because it's something they've already learned, frees them up to think about how can I join this society or club, and that will help me achieve that sense of belonging. So it's our belief that it's worth investing in the academic skills of students prior to entry. I was going to say something else. I think the other thing around belonging is thinking flexibly about campus visits and how, with very minimal budget, because that's we don't use student ambassadors for our events, it is just the practitioner's time. How can someone in a position like mine deliver a campus visit with few resources but with maximum impact? So we, for example, use a computer room to give them space to access resources on their project. They find that really invaluable and it costs us nothing. We take them to the library for the afternoon. They can use the books in there for reference. They find that really valuable and it costs us nothing. You know, we don't give them lunch. We ask them to bring lunch with them. So that's another, it doesn't cost us anything. So they're just to be on campus is, for us, it costs nothing, but for them it's so impactful. So yeah, I wonder if it's about thinking outside the box. What's a affordable way? I know that finance is a big barrier for a lot of institutions at the moment, to deliver that sense of belonging activity. Yeah, does that answer your question? Sorry.
No, it does, and I think, you know, that is a good point there, isn't it? About the only way to really grow a community is by trying to make it accessible to people to come and actually just be part of that community, isn't it? About kind of you know, it's about spaces and places, and actually, if we can open those up for people to come and experience, then actually that is a step in the right direction about growing that community where those individuals can feel seen or can feel heard or just feel like they recognise that familiarity that you were talking about, or the opportunity to develop connections, whether that be human to human or just connecting with spaces and places on campus. I always remember when I was at school, we used to, you know, the UEA was always just on our doorstep. So when you came to UEA, you had like an idea of where you were, what was going on, and I remember exactly as you say, that was one less thing to worry about, because at least you knew roughly where you were when you got here, and so that did free up time and space to kind of think about other things. So I think that idea of, you know, opening it up and just welcoming people in and get them to come here is you know, like you say, a cost-effective way of just trying to actively grow a community by just bringing more people into that space.
Yeah, and I think as well, with in terms of that experience of being on a university campus, I think we sometimes take for granted how alienating that can be, just how many invisible barriers there are between those students who haven't maybe ever experienced a university campus before and their first interaction with one. It can feel quite intimidating, quite scary. So I think just showing them, you know, even if it's something as simple as a member of the public, you can access this library anytime. You just need to bring some ID, which I know is the case for a lot of university libraries around the country, but how well used is that is another question. So we know that, you know, at least for most of the year, so outside of sort of exam periods and things like that, it's possible to just show up as a member of the public and use our library as a reference, you know, as a source of reference. And I don't know how well known that is amongst the Southampton community. It's certainly not a very well used opportunity. So yeah, even just that, I think makes it a big difference, because we mostly, obviously, with geographical limitations being what they are, most of the students who do attend are from relatively local towns and cities. So they, in theory, they could come in their own time and access the library as well.
Yeah, excellent. We could talk for a lot longer, but I'm thinking about the future then for the work you're doing and for future work of colleagues. And I just wondered if you had any sort of future directions and hopes for the EPQ, but also any top tips for people that are thinking about how they can maximise opportunities for belonging pre-entry, and whether you've got any key takeaways that you would want to share with other colleagues.
Yeah, so in terms of future work, we know that the evidence tells us that by far the bigger impact of doing an EPQ is felt by students who meet these widening participation criteria. And unfortunately and ironically, a lot of schools and colleges deliver the EPQ in a sort of gifted and talented format. It's also largely, well, not largely, but it is often taken up by private grammar schools, selective schools, and which seems quite is the inverse really of that, what that relationship should look like, right? So if we know that it's more beneficial, more impactful for those students who meet WP criteria, then that's where it should be being delivered, and that's where it should be being delivered well. And I think schools struggle because they have huge pressures. There's a lot of issues of staff turnover where the EPQ is concerned. Timetabling is a real issue. So the more support that we can offer schools who are delivering this qualification, the better. So what we would love to see is more schools and colleges delivering it with a widening participation focus, knowing that relationship that exists between completing it and progression to university, and then even achievement at university. So there's an awarding gap between students who have and haven't done the EPQ. So that's future planning. We would love to support more students, but I think we're just one team of 3 people, so that would you know, be impossible. So the more universities that can engage with this sort of work, the better. But in terms of just generally supporting pre-entry students and how institutions might approach that, the very first thing that they need to do is foster those good relationships with schools and colleges, and recognising that teachers have so much on their plate that they don't have the capacity to be necessarily delivering extra curricular opportunities like this, or if they are timetabled to deliver it, that will be the limit of what they can actually do. So the more that we can do to go in and support those teachers and lecturers in schools and colleges with that delivery of research skills, the better. Yeah, that would be my takeaway.
Brilliant. It's been so lovely to talk to you, Becky, and like I say, just a really interesting and unique angle that we've not explored in any of the podcasts that I've done so far. So I think colleagues will really be able to take away something different. And again, that pre-entry discussion and consideration is, I think, under discussed. And so I'll be interested to see how your work develops in Southampton moving forward as well. And I'm sure that colleagues will want to connect with you outside of the podcast and the conference next week. So thank you so much for your time. It's been really lovely to talk to you, and look forward to having more of those discussions again soon.
Yeah, lovely. Look forward to seeing you at the conference as well.
Thank you for listening to the Connected podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please check out the rest of our extraordinary Voices of Belonging collection and stay connected.